Welcome to Total Football Episode 2. We are going to preview the Arsenal versus Leeds United game this Saturday at 5:30 South African time. It's a beautiful morning. I'm on my way home from a night shift, 12-hour shift. It's 20 past 7 in the morning in the mother city, Cape Town, South Africa. Arsenal versus Leeds United. It's our first game at the Emirates Stadium. I expect us to beat Leeds comfortably at home. We'll have more possession. We will be in the ascendancy for the duration of the game. I expect us, to score at least 3 goals against the promoted side. Leeds United are a good team. They are an attacking team. They are very, very offensive. I remember when Pisla was there, when Leeds was last in the Premier League, they were a joy to watch. But the problem is they conceded so many goals that they didn't stay up. That's why they got relegated. As offensive as they are, defensively, they've leaked goals in so many games, and that was the downfall of the Premier League return. So I'm looking forward to the game at the Emirates. I'm looking so forward. I think they owe us a performance after that disastrous performance against Manchester United. Even though we got the win, we expect Arsenal to play expansive, attacking, beautiful football. So, looking at the team, I'd like to see Madueke start ahead of Martinelli. I just think that he's more direct, and I think the one thing that Gyökeres will benefit from is the fact that we have a left footer who can cross the ball into the 6-yard box, and that's something that Martinelli hardly does. He hardly looks up, which is so frustrating. And Martinelli has come to Arsenal, and we've talked about him as having huge potential to be one of the best wingers in the Premier League, but he just hasn't lived up to that expectation. I remember 2 or 3 seasons ago he had a fantastic season. I think it was the season where we were 8 points ahead of City, and we ended up battling the league yet again, where he had a really, really good season, but he's been poor. And I just think that left-hand side, it's something that's been talked about, throughout the transfer window. There's been talk about Eze coming in. There's been talk about the guy from Athletic Bilbao, Nico Williams, coming in as well. He signed a 50-year contract with him, so that's not going to happen. But one thing I will say is that the way Arteta has set up his team, he wants his left fullback to drift into midfield. And when that happens, yes, we end up having more numbers in the middle of the park. But what also happens is you're taking away that support for Martinelli or Trossard. If you look at the right-hand side, you have Saka, you have Ben White, you have Odegaard in that right-hand side. There's so much support on the one side of the pitch, and it makes it difficult for the opposition's fullback to sort of decide on who he wants to tackle. Does he go for Saka? Does he go for Ben White overlapping? Does he go for Odegaard? Whereas on the left hand side, you have no one. You just have Martinelli, or you just have Trossard. There's no overlapping fullback that side, because that fullback's in the middle of the park. So you kind of give Martinelli for not having the impact that we expect him to have, but at the same time, I think he's been there long enough to to sort of adapt to Arteta's system. So I genuinely hope that Madueke starts against Leeds, and I feel like lots of people will want to see Gyökeres start yet again, and that's what I want to see, because we will be dominating position, we will be creating more opportunities, and all that I want to see is him score a goal. There's so many doubters out there, who are, they are sort of wondering if he was the correct purchase. I know there were links with Cisco as well. It was between Jokeris and Cisco, and they've obviously gone for Jokeris, but you have to understand that he has shown intent to come to Arsenal. He's wanted Arsenal, and we want players who want to play for Arsenal. We don't want players who's going to second out, is this the right team for me? He wanted to come to Arsenal, and you cannot you cannot doubt his ability as a striker after one Premier League game. He's played what 65 minutes of Premier League football, and he's hardly had a pre-season. So we have to be patient with him, and give him some time to get used to the way we play. There's been a lot of talk about him, uh, having to adapt his game to the way we play. And that's true. I think that the same way the likes of Saka and Odegaard and Zubameni and Martinelli, the same way they have to adapt to his gameplay, he has to adapt to the way Arsenal play football. But that's something that Arteta and his coaching staff, they have to do. They have to find a way to sort of balance out Gyökeres's talent, or the way he makes his runs, to our attackers, abilities as well. So, I'm looking forward to seeing him play at home at the Emirates. The crowd will be behind him. We support him. And he will be a success if we create the chances for him. So as much as we criticize him, having no impact against United, we have to understand that it's the duties or the responsibilities of our attackers, of those attackers behind him, to create something for him. He's been feeding off scraps for the past few games that he's played. I know he scored a goal against Athletic in our pre-season friendly, but you look at the game against United, they didn't create much for him. So you cannot blame him. He's there to score goals, but you have to create those opportunities for him to score those goals. So I'm looking forward to it. There's a couple of big games as well coming up this weekend. Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspur. I'm looking forward to that game because I personally feel that Man City, they've been flying under the radar. Lots of people's favourites to win the titles, Liverpool and Arsenal to finish second. But looking at that first game against Wolves from City, they looked like the old City, and you have to understand that they are still managed by the best manager in the world, Pep Guardiola, and they've added so many quality players, and you would think that Rodri is still in that team, but the way Rangers was playing against Wolves, you hardly missed Rodri, So if he comes back into that midfield, I mean, I look at City right now, and I think they are much more dangerous than Liverpool. I genuinely feel that way, and the reason why I say that is because their midfield is way more powerful and way more creative than Liverpool's midfield. I think you saw that, from Liverpool against Bournemouth. Yes, they scored 4 goals, but their midfield was so exposed by Bournemouth. And I think one of the reasons why is because Gavin Birch was suspended. So you can forgive them for that. But you notice that one player missing from a midfield, it has so much impact on the way you play, on your defense. So I do see Man City as a threat, but Spurs as well. I think Spurs are underdogs, for top 4. I don't think they'll challenge for the title, but you look at Spurs and their recruitment. Mohamed Kudus, he's a world beater. On his day, he's one of the best wingers in the Premier League, and one of the things we've noticed from Spurs against City in the past, is that they are City's bogey team. So it's going to be an interesting watch. You look at the Charleston as well, scoring 2 goals. Hate the guy. I think his attitude stinks. But he scored 2 goals, and he has the ability to finish the way he finished those 2 goals on the half volley. So it's going to be a good watch, but I do think that City will come out on top solely because they are playing at home. So it's going to be a good game. The other game I'm looking forward to is Newcastle United versus Liverpool. slash Isak, because he's come out with a statement last night, after the awards. He's come out with a statement himself saying that certain promises have been broken by Newcastle. He said that he was promised if a big club comes for him, he will be allowed to leave, which is understandable, but we have to remember that Newcastle, they set the price. He has 3 years left on his contract. And if a team comes in for any of their players and they say, listen, this is what it's going to cost to prize away certain players from the club, you have to respect that. You have to pay it. If you really want a player, you will pay the money that the club has set for that player. Liverpool did the same with Bayern Munich when they came in for Luis Diaz. They made an offer. Liverpool rejected it and said, listen, this price is too low. We value Luis Diaz at this price. You either pay it or you don't. And they paid the money for him. That's the price that Liverpool set for him. So they have to respect the fact that Newcastle have set a certain price, £150 million for Alexander Isak, and they have to respect that and pay it if they really want it. If they really want it. My thoughts on the situation: listen, you are contacted by Newcastle. You have to respect that contract, and at the end of the day, yes, if they told you you are allowed to leave, you have to understand that they have a say in what it's going to cost to prize you away. He's a world-class striker, one of the best strikers in the world. Easily top 5 strikers in the world. So they don't want him to go on the cheap. I know £100 million seems like a lot, but you're putting that price. Declan Rice, he cost 100 mil. Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez cost 100 mil. You cannot put him in the same category as them. As a striker, 150 mil. It seems fair. Um, Considering that there aren't many world class strikers out there. Especially ones that are available. I mean, pay the money, and I think if Liverpool get Isak, I think they're going to win the league. There's been lots of talk about their defense. Which they do look a bit shaky in defense. But I mean, if you can outscore teams, you wouldn't care about the defense. So I think I think I think Liverpool will go there. I think they will smash Newcastle. I think the fact that they don't have a recognized striker, a natural goal scorer. I think like we've seen, in the first game, um, that's going to cost them, this season. It's all good and well having the creativity, in Jacob Murphy and Elanga and Gordon, but you don't have any goal scorers to finish those opportunities. The same way Arsenal was last season and the season before. We've created so many chances and opportunities, but we didn't have that clinical striker to put away those opportunities. So same with Newcastle. The same with Newcastle. I expect Liverpool to go and get all 3 points. Um, it's going to be a good one. I just think that Newcastle, with all this transfer speculation with Isak, I think it's not good for the team. It's not good for the morale of the players as well. Knowing that your best player doesn't want to be at the club anymore. So, I mean, I expect Liverpool to go and beat them, and I think I think I think this is the weekend that we could possibly see Mark KU from KU or KU. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. KU from Crystal Palace will most likely join them as well. I saw, after the game against Chelsea on Sunday, the I think it was the chairman came onto the pitch and he called Gay, and you could see he looked up and he just continued walking, but there's lots of speculation regarding why he just walked away. I think he was disappointed with the performance by himself, in that game. I don't think it had anything to do with the whole transfer speculation, otherwise why would you play? I don't think they would play him if the speculation affected his game anyway. I thought he was outstanding in that game. So I think he was good in the Community Shield as well against Liverpool. So that's definitely a transfer to keep an eye on. Um, but let me know in the comments if you want to know anything about, you know who I think the top 4 will be, top scorer, surprise package, relegation candidates, best transfer of the window, and um, just be sure to subscribe, like, follow, share if you like the content. I would appreciate any critical feedback, and have a good day. Be blessed.